we were pissing neon green every day.
The big ball of heat in the sky was too much.
I thought there was a bear.
Reality goes, yeah, fresco. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, everybody. What's up, everybody?
Welcome to
StouryTime.
StouryTime.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to StouryTime with John and Friends. I'm your host, John. Today's guest has a new self-titled album releasing October 4th. Please welcome Tim Lappin of Casual Male. Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Dude, I'm good.
That's
good.
Great to hear. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
All right. So you nailed it. My name's Tim. I'm from the band Casual Male, which is really it. I am Casual Male. It's my band, I guess. I'm based here in Brooklyn. I've been kind of a session side person player for many, many years, toured with a lot of different folks, and started doing this project maybe like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Pandemic's messed my brain up, but I've released a few EPs and some singles, and this record is my first full-length record. Comes out October 4th, like you said, and so yeah, I'm starting to put singles out, playing some shows, just trying to get the ball rolling, and really excited with it, and like really excited to share it. So
very cool. I've listened to it like 3 or 4 times already. It's very good.
Thanks, man.
Job well done, sir.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love the grooviness of the bass, but then the synth, and it's great. And all across the board,
Awesome.
I loved every song. So very well done.
So
Absolutely.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I've got some questions for you. I guess we'll just dive right in here.
Do it, man.
You've got 2 recent releases. The first was Half Cut, which you did a music video for. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the newest one was Hondo Civic.
That's correct.
Very cool. The music video, so you shot that, was that shot during the eclipse?
Yeah, it was during the eclipse in Central Park with a friend of mine, this guy, Chris Egan, who is a phenomenal drummer, musician in his own right, and is like a friend. We've done some sessions together, and he's good friends with Adam Green from the Moldy Peaches, and he's done some videos for him, and he's just kind of like, let's just go out and see what happens, and that's kind of his style. So I asked him about doing a video, and we did a day in Central Park before that day. It's like, yeah, let's just walk around and see what happens. And then he was like, hey, the eclipse is coming up. What if we, I don't know, just like went to the park and just like saw what happened? And we went with like zero plan and got kind of lucky. It was like there was a bunch of like neither of us even had glasses. We both rolled up and like, did you get them? I said, no, me neither. Damn. And happened to run into a friend of his who was working on a production shoot in the park that day. And they were walking by and they had glasses in their hand. Like, man, I had to go get these for the director. It's been such a pain in the butt all day. Like, do you guys want a pair? We're like, yeah. So literally, if we haven't just randomly run into one of Chris's friends in the park, we wouldn't even had glasses to look at the thing. So
yeah,
it all kind of worked out pretty well.
Very cool. Did you see the totality?
I mean, yes. I think it got like, because you're up in Buffalo, right?
I'm in Buffalo, yeah. So we had 100% totality,
Yeah,
but
I
it
think
was like it was so cloudy here that you couldn't see anything.
That sucks.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you saw little pieces here and there, and it still got really dark, which was a cool experience. But I mean, the most I saw, there was like, I don't know, maybe a third of the moon left, and then after that, everything was just gone, or it was covered. So
yeah, damn, that's so disappointing.
Yeah, whatever. We'll see it next time.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think it was 90% in New York, but it got very dark, and it was awesome. And it was one of those moments where New York just like rarely stops for anything. It really takes a pause, and it did. And it was just a really cool energy in Central Park, and just like people were just like stopping and like was so cool. So it was a cool day. I I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was just like loose. Let's just film and see what happens.
Very cool. Yeah, I like the effects and everything because it almost looked like with the color changes and everything that he did for the editing, it almost looked looked like you were looking at you through the glasses, like if they were 3D glasses or something, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were trying to get it a little funky and stuff, and yeah, Chris did an amazing job
Absolutely.
with that.
So what's the story behind the band name?
The band name, funny enough, well, there used to be a clothing store called Casual Male, and when I was starting the band, I thought this was really funny for a while. I had business cards that it was a really nice business card, and it said my name, Tim Lappin, and then it said just some guy, and there was zero contact information on it. There was no phone number, no email, and I thought it was like really funny. So for a while, I would hand these out to people and did myself a huge disservice by doing this because it actually pissed people off pretty good. And I lost quite a few gigs doing that because like someone would be like, man, like we should play, and I'd be like, yeah, here's my card, and they'd be like, the fuck, dude. And so I was like, what if I called the band Just Some Guy, and then my ex at the time saw the store Casual Mail. She's like, what about Casual Mail? I was like, oh, that's great. And I was trying to come up with the least offensive name possible. I was just like, I don't know, who could be offended by Casual Mail? And that was the idea at the time. And that was the impetus for it. Just like the hope being like, I'm not, listen, a lot of people are trying to claim to be something here, and I'm not. I'm here. I'm just putting out some music and just try not to take up too much space or something. That was the idea.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great story behind that.
Thanks. Yeah. Those cards, man. They were nice too. They were nice business cards. And I had a graphic designer friend come up with the font. It was like beautifully made. And I just really screwed myself.
That's funny. So what is your writing process like?
So it kind of depends. Like there's a few different ways. One, sitting around on the couch with the guitar, like the divine intervention kind of thing happens. Something just kind of starts coming out, and I'll record it on a voice memo. And that's usually when the best things come. But pretty much most of the time is I'll start with making demos with like drums and bass. Because I am bass is like my first instrument. That's what I went to school for jazz performance, like on Upright, and have toured with tons of bands playing bass. So like I like to start with the groove of stuff a lot of the times. I like to start with the drums. I feel like once that stuff is kind of figured out, a lot of the other things become a lot easier. So that's usually I kind of work bottom up. Occasionally, I'll be strumming the guitar and then I'll have the melody and everything, or the words just come, and that is the best because it's usually like the purest or something. But a lot of times it's like, all right, let's make a demo. Let's get the drums and the bass feeling good or cool, or like figure that out, figure out the tempo, figure out the feel. And then I feel like a lot of stuff like just kind of starts sitting on top of that a lot easier. And usually the vocals and lyrics are last almost all the time.
Yeah.
Because those come the least easy to me. And so they end up taking probably the longest. And, I'm like, all right, I have to like think about this for a long time and workshop lyrics forever and try to come up with good melodies. And that takes me a long time. So try to do the fun, easy stuff first, get that feeling good. And then like, all right, this is a cool tune. Like, and then I can kind of work from that.
So you can really play most instruments.
Yeah. I mean, like drums, I'm not a drummer at all. So I'm using programmed drums, like, in the box stuff. And bass, guitar, and then keys stuff I'll do myself for the most part. Um, programming synths and all that kind of stuff. But like virtuosic piano playing I couldn't do, and then most of the vocals I'm doing here at home, and just like with the exception of my girlfriend Emily sang on a bunch of these tunes, and
Very
she's
cool.
actually a very good singer. So like she was like stacking harmonies
That's awesome.
one after the other, and like, yeah, all right, that's cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's great.
when you're writing this stuff, do you kind of hear that stuff in your like? Do you hear that the harmonies and everything and the synth and all that stuff in your head like while you're writing it, or is it like you do pre-pro, you do a demo, and then you're like, okay, what does this need, or is it does it come really natural beforehand?
It depends. I mean, like, I think I just like work in the colors that I'm used to working in, which is drums, bass, guitars, synths, vocals. So like I just kind of I'm like, all right, they're gonna be in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to kind of find the place for that. And a lot of times I'll do additive. I'll just be like, all right, let's try adding guitars to this.
Mm-hmm.
And let's try adding acoustic to this. And I'll like kind of add and then be like, all right, now what do I strip away? But I'll just kind of let that happen with the instrument in my hand. Sometimes I know, yeah, I know exactly what I want the synth to do. I know exactly what I want the guitar to do. But a lot of times I'm just like kind of like playing over what I've created with the bass and the drums and like starting to figure out, oh, okay, this is a cool thing.
Mm.
A lot of it is like happy accident.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like production. Like I love having panned acoustic guitars playing rhythm and certain stuff like in Hondo. Like I know I want that. And so, all right, we can do that, which is funny because it's a different hat than it's like the technical hat instead of the creative hat. So
Mhm.
like depends on what kind of mood I might be in. Like now I have to play, I gotta like do a good take of this. And you're like, all right, well, that's different than me like messing around and finding something cool. So it depends. But when it's a good day, it's all just already ready to go. And then when it's most days, it's just me just like trying to, get water from a stone vibe.
Very cool. Yeah, there's nothing better than when you're writing a song and everything just kind of falls into place.
I know
with no effort.
I know. I mean, I wish, I'm like 1 for 100 with those. Most of the time it's pretty bleak.
Well, like I said, the record came out, and then going back on your catalog, I loved everything. So, very good job. So this is a tour story sharing podcast.
Sure.
I asked you to maybe think of some stuff you wanted to share. Why don't we dive right in? What do you got for me?
Okay, well, like with touring, where should we start with the highs or the lows or
wherever you want to go, man? This is your moment.
Okay, cool. Well, like, I've been lucky in my career to have kind of run all the gamuts of touring and have done, like the smallest, most inconsequential shows you could have ever imagine, to doing like huge stuff. And like, so, I've really been lucky in that I've gotten to do all these different things. But I do think there is something about like being in the van or whatever, and just like so much stuff happens in those tours just every day, because you don't really know what's going to happen. You really don't know what you're going to do. But I just saw a good friend of mine. I used to tour with his wife, this songwriter Peppy Ginsburg. She's an amazing songwriter, filmmaker. She's brilliant. And so I was in a band. I started a band with her called Companion and a few other friends. And we did this tour with this band, Evangelicals, who were based out of Norman, Oklahoma. And they were awesome. And we were just doing this joint tour together. they were the best. Awesome band, awesome people. And so, every night the shows would vary in size, but like we had so much fun. And it was just, we got really close and it was just a really good time. And so we were in Atlanta, and Atlanta's a fun town. And I think every time I've been in Atlanta, something kind of insane has happened. But so we're in Atlanta and I'm standing in line for the bathroom, and this dude like gets behind me in line. He's like, "Hey man, good set." Like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "You guys got a place to stay tonight?" I was like, no, I don't think so." He's like, "Well, I got a farm a little bit outside of the city. If you guys want to, you could crash in my farm. Plenty of room for everybody." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, cool." So I go over to the other bit, evangelicals and Pepe and other people in our band, and hey, this guy offered his farm, and they're like, "Who is he?" I'm like, "I don't know, some guy in the line for the bathroom. He seems pretty like reputable."
Yeah.
And I was having a few beers at this event this particular evening, and so they're like, "I don't know, like it sounds weird." I was like, "I don't know." Well, I talked to him. He gave me, hey, look, he gave me keys to the farm. They're like, "He gave you keys to the farm? Like that is
What?
really strange." Again,
That
you
is
were in the
strange.
bathroom. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I think it's legit." So I'm like, okay. And he like writes his like number down, his like address down on a piece of paper. And so we like finish the show, we pack up, and we're like, "All right, now I've had maybe a few more beers." And we drive out, and we're all thinking in our heads. And I remember being in the car, like I'm thinking like farm, and I'm like thinking like a big barn and like trees and outdoors and like a fire pit. And I'm like, "Yeah, this is gonna be awesome. We're gonna look at the stars, we're gonna look at all this stuff." So we get to the address, and it's an Eckert drug store. Like where it's like a shopping mall. And we're like, "Oh." So we pull around to the back of the Eckert drug, and there is a huge chain link fence, like all locked up. And we're like, "Oh, like this is the farm." And we like
What?
all the lights are off. It's dark, and it's super, super creepy. And so Peppy immediately is like, "There's no way I'm staying here. Like we're not staying here." I'm like, "Well, we got to check it out. We got to check out the farm." So we're with the other band. So we like unlock a padlock, take like the chain off, open up the chain link fence, get up, and there are things growing outside of the Eckert drug. And so, we get into the front door, and it's like this little like ranch style, like single floor ranch style house. And you walk in, and immediately it stinks. It's just like we're like, "Oh God, it smells." So we're all like, "We're not staying here, right? No, we're not staying here." So I like walk into the kitchen. There's like old meatballs in the sink with like
Oh,
flies swarming on them. I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." And then like I had to use the bathroom because I had had a few beers. And so go in the bathroom, like the bathroom hadn't been flushed in like what feels like weeks. And we're
oh
like,
wow.
"Oh, that's weird." And there's like sleeping bags like in the corner. There's no furniture in the place. And we're all like, "Oh, that's weird." And so then I walk into this other room, and I open up these doors, and I look up, and there's all these TVs with closed circuit cameras like of the farm in this closet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Holy shit." Like, and then I hear from the other room, "Yeah, I know what kind of farm it is now." And we walk over, and it's like a huge marijuana farm.
Oh,
Like in
okay.
so this is the farm. So now we're like, are we being set up? Like, what the hell is happening? There's you can see yourself on the closed circuit TV in the
Mm-hmm.
closet being filmed in this farm. And so we all get super freaked out, of course, and take the keys. And I think one of the guys threw them into a river for some reason. So we booked it. We left. We threw the keys into a river, and then we drive. And then we're like, "Well, now we got to find a hotel." And we found some random hotel uh, in Atlanta, and it was actually scarier than the farm. It was like it was pretty. You're like, "Oh, not a this is a $50 a night room." So like I had to put a dresser up and behind the door and get through the night that way. But I just like always think about opening up that closet door and like seeing for like Saw or something like that.
Yeah,
for like, just like a split.
you said that, and I immediately thought like, oh, he holds people captive here.
Yeah, like it's just gonna be. I just saw Trap the other night.
Okay.
The M. Night Shyamalan movie,
Yeah.
which is so ridiculous. But I was like, it was like felt like a trap moment or something. It was just, man, not good.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. That's what you get when you don't have a place to stay and you're just kind of winging it every night.
That's wild. I toured quite a bit for about 7 or 8 years, and there's nothing worse than going to a motel, a really cheap one, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Because you do they're disgusting. So what we would always do is we'd bring a sleeping bag and just like lay everything on top of the bed. So you're thinking you're not gonna get bed bugs or whatever. It doesn't matter.
No. But I subscribe to this idea 100%, and that I would also do the same thing. I'd always have a sleeping bag. I'd be like, I usually would even just sleep on the floor, just like I'm not touching anything. Just put my sleeping bag down, and that's that. But yeah, man, it can get a little sketchy. But at the same time, you're looking at the prices and you're like, $50 is $50.
$50. I mean,
we
for a couple hours sleep. Who cares?
We got to do it. What are we gonna do? What's the point of getting a nice room right now?
For sure. Especially with like, how many people did you have in the band?
That was 4. So
okay, so it's not bad.
Wasn't crazy, but have definitely done those tours with more people in the band, and you're just like looking at every single dollar. And I did this little run with this punk ska band out of Wisconsin called I Voted for Kodos.
Okay.
Many years ago. They're great, awesome dudes, great time. And they, like, when we went to go get meals, family meals or whatever, there was the $3 per person rule. So you could spend $3 at the, whatever fast food place you're at. Or the band could collectively pool their money together and do like the family meal at KFC. Like you're like, damn, it is tough out here.
Yeah,
down
for
to the
sure.
dollar.
Yeah, we used to pool our money together for 30 racks of beer, and just forego eating.
Well, I mean, no, that was always in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
That's a difference altogether. Were you always touring with the same band, or were these all different projects?
So I filled in the first tour I ever did. I filled in on drums for this band called Doses. They were like a pop punk band out of Rochester, New York. Cool. Yeah, just some friends of mine needed a drummer for that tour. So I did that tour, and on that tour, the band I ended up touring with for about 8 years asked me to join while I was on that tour. So I joined that band, and then I came home. They were recording a record, and their drummer quit like right after he finished recording drums, and they were like, "You're in. Let's do this. We want to tour a lot." I was like, "That's all I'm here for." So I caught the bug. You go out once. If you're somebody who wants to tour and it's something that you've wanted to do for a long time, you'll know really quick. You'll know really quick whether or not you're cut out for it. And that was my dream. You know what I mean? So I joined this band called The Traditional. We were like a rock and roll pop punk emo band. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, we did that for quite some time.
7 or 8 years.
Yeah. No, we did that. So it was like, we'd leave for a month, come home, work as much as we could to pay our bills so we could leave again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, take off for another month or a couple weeks. Same thing over and over. It's where most of my tour stories come from, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you guys still playing, or is that?
No. So we broke up. I want to say 2019, maybe 2018, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It was just time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everyone you have on here knows this, but I don't think most people know how hard it is to be in like a true like band,
Yeah, like a DIY punk band. Yeah. Actually, one of my questions is like, So what do you wish? I'll just ask it now. What do you wish that the fans knew about the experience of touring and what it takes to be a full-time or a touring, musician?
I think, that it is. It's a lot. I think about like back when I was young, and you would read about someone like Mariah Carey. Hanging with me here, Mariah Carey, or someone going into like rehab for exhaustion or something like that, and you'd be like, oh my God, these famous people with their exhaustion, like, ugh. and then and then touring on a small scale, and then imagining what Mariah Carey has to do every night, and be like, oh yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that is to say, to answer your question, it's really exhausting. And the hard thing about it, I think, and maybe you could speak to this too, is that you just want to play the drums. You just want to play music. And you're driving 90% of the time to play for, like, if you're an opener, 30 minutes.
Right.
And it's really it's a funny life, because music becomes a very small part of your day to day when you're touring. It's like, I mean, obviously it is like the reason why you're there, but there's so much other stuff that goes into it. And it's a lot. It's a lot of driving, and it's a lot of sitting in dark rooms, waiting to sound check. And all that being said, it's still the best thing in the world. And like, you play one good gig and you're like, oh man, like this is the best. So it's a lot of work, and it's tiring, but it's the best. And for me, when I'm doing it, I feel like a real sense of purpose. It's like, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I know what has to be done for the day. And it just feels really good. And so, it's when you do it, and then people come out, it's the best. It really, really is the best. So it's hard, but it's the best, I guess, what I would let people know. I don't know.
That's a great answer though, because it is hard. It's very hard actually. And like, the fans, they just show up, they if they're there to see you, they don't know that you got a flat tire and 4 hours away, or your van broke down, or anything else, or you can't get a hold of the venue, or for hours beforehand. Like, they have no idea of that. So yeah. With touring with these other bands, like, is there anything that you would do as far as a like a pre-show ritual or superstition that you may have done, or you still do?
Well, I toured with this guy, Chet Faker, for a long time, for like 5 years, and all the other members of the band were very, very good friends of mine. So like, we do tons of projects outside of that, but very, very close group. And then Nick, who is AKA Chet Faker, we would do like a huddle every single night before we went on stage. Kind of the five of us would get in a huddle and just kind of like talk about what we were gonna do, and just like, the event, and try to like kind of have a bit of like a little bit of a pause to just be like, all right, let's just take a moment and just kind of like look at each other and get in the mindset of like, we're gonna be doing this together, and let's like kind of acknowledge each other before we do that. So we did that. I think we did that every show for like 5 years. And with that, that's a bass.
Your place is haunted.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's a bass guitar. It's just 4 strings. They're just so piece of wood. But and then with one of the members of that, Grant Zabritsky, we would often split a Red Bull before we went on stage.
Okay.
And then crack a beer. So it'd be like this kind of upper downer vibe.
Okay.
So like half a Red Bull and a beer would be my stage vibe for Nick for probably the whole time that I played with him. And I do like to try and do something, not necessarily the huddle, but I do like to try and, like, when I'm doing casual mail shows with the band, have a moment to kind of say thank you to everybody being there and for doing this with me, and have a show of appreciation for the other members for just like doing this with me, because it is my thing, and they're world-class players that could be like, no, I don't want to, fuck you, but they do it. And I learn the music and they play the hell out of it. So I that's one thing I took from that. I just, I try not to be too corny, but it's like, thank you. Like it does mean a lot. And it's something that I'm thinking about all the time. As still, I still play mainly for other people. I do a lot of other gigs, and you can tell a difference between someone who appreciates what you do and the work you put in and you as a person versus someone who doesn't. So that's kind of like my pre-show. Let people
Very
know
cool.
that.
Very nice.
Cool.
What's like the biggest difference between playing in these other bands that you do play for, and then playing as, casual male? And how do I want to phrase this? Like, what's the biggest difference? Because like those bands, you're a part of that performance, but it's not like your band. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't write all of this stuff. What's the biggest difference? I guess I don't know. I don't know how to put it.
I know exactly what you're saying. Well, I think the big difference is, I'm usually playing bass with other bands, and I think being a bass player, you have a certain responsibility musically and socially. A lot of times in these bands is you're there to be chill. You're there to not make any waves. You want to support everybody musically and emotionally. And so when I'm playing with other people, I'm really trying to serve the song. I'm trying to lock in with the drummer, support the singer, trying to let my ego go as much as I can, because it can get in the way, and just like, all right, what can I do to make this music as good as possible, and like let my own crap go, and like, you're in the back. So anyway, being a bass player, I think you're there to support, and you're kind of there to be in the back. And then when I do the casual male thing, it's a kind of relief, because it is just, I can just do whatever I want. And I like really just let it all out. I want to get all that crap that's maybe locked up inside me, and like playing with a full band, like playing with like a great drummer. And I do solo shows with I have an old boombox that I make tracks, and like bring a cassette tape and like run that through a sampler and do like solo guitar.
Well, that's cool.
And it's like I'm trying to figure out ways to be able to do solo that's interesting, and then when I like a bigger show, I'll get the full band. So, but with the full band, it's just the best, and the other players are just so good. So it just like, I get to be the center of attention, which I never am as a bass player.
All right.
Worry about so much singing things 100% correct, or like, I don't even like sometimes I mess up the words. And for me, it's just like, it's about this moment, it's about this experience. I don't once I'm doing it, I don't stress out as much about, like, if I'm being hired to play bass, I'm like, I gotta nail everything,
Right.
I gotta get all that. And so when it's me, I'm like, whatever, I messed up a bunch, it's fine, who cares, like, I'm trying to tap more into that emotional side of it, and more into like the song and the performance, maybe letting the professional technical supportive side go.
Okay. That's
makes
great.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you tour, what is the funniest thing that comes to mind that you've encountered or happened to you while touring?
The funniest thing that's happened to me. Man, I have to think about that. Now you gave me prep. Well, I thought the weed thing was pretty funny earlier.
No, that's wild.
Uh,
That is wild.
Let me think. All right. So what is? Oh, okay. That was pretty funny. I made a couple notes here. I'm just like trying to remember. Oh, that was fun. Okay. I toured. I've been in this band for. I now affectionately call it my dad rock band. It's called Goodbye Picasso. I joined it when I first moved to New York 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we've toured a few times and we play all the time in New York, and now the members are kind of scattered around the country a little bit more, so we play when we can, but I call my dad rock band because it's the idea is we get together every 4 months, just everyone drinks a ton of beers and we play the same set we've been playing for 4 years and we have the best time. It's
That's
it's
awesome.
just like it's awesome. I love it, and they're all the best. They're some of the most interesting and funny and creative people. But we were in Chicago and we had an off day. And so there was no plan. And I just kind of woke up at a friend's apartment. And so I just started walking around and I would just like try and discover a bar or something. So I walked into this old bar and was sitting there and started having a few beers and then started talking to some of the other people in the bar. And there's these two women at the end of the bar, like, I was probably in my 20s and they're like middle aged and they're just like asking me about what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm a musician. Like, they're like, they had these great Chicago accents that I'm not going to try and do, but just like, like, oh, that's so funny. And what are you doing here? And so then like I keep drinking. And then there was like a Magner's cider giveaway. So the bartender was like, hey, there's this free giveaway. You should stick around. And I'm like, all right, cool. So, I'm trying to text with the other guys and I don't know what they're doing. And so, I'm having some Magners and then I say goodbye to those ladies. They leave. And then I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell to do. So I like walk outside and I'm just like kind of standing. Like they were meeting some people like down at the like seaport or something. And so then the car drives by and it's the two ladies and they're like, Tim, like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know. They're like, you want to ride? I was like, yeah, I'll take a ride. So I jump in their car and they're like, are you hungry? I was like, yeah, I'm hungry. So they're like, all right, let's take you to our favorite, like, what's like a beef sandwich spot. Like I think it's like called Chicago, right? Someone's gonna.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of like in like the Bear before it becomes the.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So like we're gonna take you to our favorite spot. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. So we go to this place. We get they're like, you got to get this with this and this. We get some sandwiches, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no plans. So, great. It's getting later. It's like dark at this point. So we drive away. We're like, I'm eating a sandwich in the back of their car, and the one lady's like, I have to stop by my house. So I got to check on my daughter. I'll be right back. So I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting in the back eating the sandwich, and she comes back in with like sodas, and she's like, okay, I've got 2 Mountain Dews and a Pepsi. Tim, what would you like? I'm like, I got to be honest, I actually really want the Pepsi. I know it's not the gentleman. I think, Tim, you can have the Pepsi. So like, I'm in the back seat eating this roast beef sandwich, and like the other guys in the band are like, yo, where are you? What is happening? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where I am. I'm just like literally driving around eating sandwiches and drinking Pepsi. And they turned out to be 2 lawyers from Chicago, or just their old girlfriends, and they're just having a day off. They're gonna go out dancing later. And so then just having the best time. And they're like, well, we're gonna go out dancing. Like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I don't know. I guess I should go meet these guys. They've been texting me. They're down at this place. So like this, like, all right, we'll drive. It's like a half-hour drive. We'll give you a drive down there. I was like, all right. So I'm like, fine. All right, guys, I'm showing up. So I roll up and they were at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville for some reason. They've been drugged to Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, and they're all sitting outside and they look miserable. And they're like, the food's coming out and it's terrible and it's expensive and they're sitting there and I roll up with half a beef sandwich and a Pepsi and just like kind of, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And I just like sat on a, and they were like, bye, Tim. They waved me off and they go off into their night. I have no idea who they are, and ate a roast beef sandwich and drank a Pepsi on a park bench while these guys spent like $100 at Margaritaville, absolutely miserable.
That's incredible.
It was just like a beautiful tour day where, I'm sure you've had these where you're just like, I welcome whatever comes today.
Yeah. You're very trusting with
yeah.
like first the farm.
Yeah. I guess you're seeing a pattern here.
That's great,
I'm like,
though.
And I also like acknowledge that like being a dude, you're so just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
Crap women have to deal with out there. And and I was young and I'm like, I don't know if I would do that now, but
it's very different.
They seem cool. They seem cool. Why not? And but I always loved that stuff. I always just loved like meeting people, and that's kind of my favorite thing about being on tour is just meet the most random people you could ever possibly meet, and it's the best. So that was just, I don't know if that's a funny story, but that was just like one that came to my mind.
No, that was great. You're right too, though, because like that was also one of my favorite things was meeting people, but people become way nicer too when they find out that you're like a touring musician, because they're like, oh, that's so cool. That's something that I wish I could do. You know what I mean? So that's people definitely like to show a good time, especially because they're like, well, we don't know when they'll be back, so like let's show them what Chicago's all about,
But yes, it is the best part of tour. It is like, or one of them, and people. There's a big difference if you're going somewhere as a tourist, and I think a lot of people are closed off, like, ugh. But then when you're like, oh, I'm actually on tour, you're right. People are like, I want you to see the best parts of this place.
Yeah,
I want you to have a good time. So
they're like, have you gone here for food yet? That's where I want to go because you just said that now.
This is actually the good place,
Yeah, that's great.
That place, yeah, it's the best.
Do you have any like weird or interesting fan interactions? Good, bad, the ugly?
I mean, nothing too bad. Let me just see here. I just like looking. No, not, I've been pretty lucky, but I saw touring with Nick. It was kind of a different vibe I would see because, one, I'm just going to say it, as the bass player, you're probably last on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're probably pretty low on the totem pole of I got a good buddy who lives in Nashville. He's a great songwriter named Hayes Peebles, who I played bass with a lot when he was in Brooklyn. And he was telling me how he's like a good looking dude. He's great singer. And he's like sometimes got hired to play bass in a friend's band. And he's like, yeah, I've never experienced that before. Like I finished the set and I just put my bass in the case and not a single person came up to me after the gig. He used to be in the front man, the singer. I'm like, yeah. That's the vibe. So I haven't had any, people haven't really come up to talk to me too much, but I would see with Nick when I was touring with him, just like what a little bit of fame can do in the interaction. And it was a little, like we did a festival in the UK, forget what, Lovebox, I think it was. And LCD Sound System was headlining. And I was backstage with Nick. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out watch LCD. And some of the guys are out there. And, for example, play a festival and you're like on a jumbotron, and you go walk around, and maybe one person's like, "Hey, that was cool." You're like, "Great."
Mm-hmm.
We'll walk out with Nick. He's like, "Oh, I really want to see him, so like, I'll come with you." So we're walking from like the backstage, and we're getting closer to like the general area. We're just gonna go out watching the crowd, and as we get closer and closer to the crowd area, I would see people just like start like popping up, like seeing him and just like popping up and like it was starting to come over, and it became like Night of the Living Dead or something, where you just saw
They're swarming.
yeah, kind of just like come like slowly they saw him and just started like walking towards him, and he was like, "I'm gonna go back," and I was like, "Yeah, fair." Then as soon as he left, they dispersed because bass player maybe.
That's funny. That's
And
wild.
yeah, it's wild, and so you can get a really wide experience, but I've generally only experienced people being nice. If they're gonna take the time to talk to the bass player, I'm not trying to crap a bass players too, but
They're probably a
player.
bass player.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly correct. Man, so is that like a vintage P or what is that? It's a 78. Oh, yeah, 78 this year. Yeah. I got a 78. I mean, that's it. Yeah,
that's
if they're
funny.
going up to talk, they're probably a bass player. That's it. So no one really bothered me too much.
That's funny, man. You got another story for me?
Let's see. All right, let me see. All right. Sorry, I'm like looking at my phone.
Oh, you're good.
Like I'm cheating.
You're not the first, and you won't be the last.
Good. All right. Good. Well, oh man, I don't know if this is not. This was just well, this was just a gig. This wasn't a tour, so I don't know if this counts.
It counts.
I can.
It's
okay.
story time, so like,
okay,
play on words, but also like can be anything.
This is like my darkest gig I've ever played, I believe. And I think it holds up for anyone who's had a very dark gig. But so when I was in college, I was going to school for jazz performance, and I would do a lot of gigs on upright, just duo, trio, whatever. So I was playing quite a bit, and a guy that I would do these gigs with, who wasn't the greatest guitar player. He was good, but he wasn't the greatest. But we'd do these like country club gigs, and there'd just be the two of us, and it was fine. We would just like get really into it no matter what the occasion. It didn't matter what setting we were in.
Mm-hmm.
He was like going for it like it was like the biggest gig of his life, So credit was due, but you're playing cocktail hour at a country club, you don't need to do that. So it would always be a little awkward. And so he calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I got a gig on Wednesday. It's just duo, $80." Like, all right, great. He's like, "I'll pick you up." Cool. So he's like, "We're, dressed a little nice." Okay. So he picks me up, put my bass in the back of his car. He's got his guitar and a little amp. I'm like, "Where's the gig?" He's like, "Oh, it's out in the Bucks County." Okay, cool. Driving. I'm like, "Where? It's a country club?" He's like, No. Okay. What's it for? It's like, it's a birthday party. Oh, okay, birthday party, cool. So we're driving more. I'm like, "Where's the birthday party?" "Oh, it's actually it's at a hospital." I'm like, "It's a birthday party at a hospital?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, I don't love going into hospitals. It's not really my favorite vibe. My grandmother was sick around that time, and you go to hospitals. I'm just like, I don't really know if I want to." He's like, "No, it's gonna be great. It's for an old family friend's birthday party, and we're just gonna go and we're gonna play some songs. He loves jazz, and his wife asked me to do it. That I've known him my whole life." I'm like, "Okay, all right, that sounds fine." So we're going in. I'm like in khaki pants, like walking into the hospital. And like all the nurses are like, "Ooh, someone's getting a little treat today." You got the bass. I'm like, "Oh, this feels weird." So we get to the end of this hallway, and this guy's like, "Hey, just wait here for a second." I'm like, "All right." So I'm standing outside and I just hear in the room, it's like, Ed, I don't remember this gentleman's name. It's like, Ed, wake up, wake up. There's a little surprise for you. And then I hear my friend saying like, hey, happy birthday, Mr. Robertson. I'm here to play here to play some music for you. And it's like, what? It's like, what's going on? And so I'm like, oh gosh, we're playing. This man is in the hospital. Like we're playing at this guy. He's in a hospital bed, and we're about to play music for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he calls me. He's like, oh my God, so I go in. So first of all, as a musician, we didn't tune or anything. We didn't tune to each other. I have got an upright. He's got his guitar. There's been no communication about the tuning of these instruments. So like whatever just happened. So he's like, hey, let's play something. I look at him, I'm in this little hospital room, and there's this man in the bed. His wife is holding his hand. He's probably like in his 80s, and his son is on the other side of them. And on the tray on him is like a little tiny little cake that just says like "Happy Birthday, Ed." And I'm like, oh my God, this is heartbreaking. Again, like my grandmother's going through all this crap. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be like this is so sad. So then my friend's like, all right, let's play, and again, stop playing the room. You call something beautiful or slow, a ballad of some kind. And he calls some like up tempo bop tune, like which is like a fast jazz standard. So he's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and he's like going for it. He's trying to like get his chops in. So he's like going for it. So we're like, and he's taking solo after solo. Well, he's playing for like 8 minutes, like soloing. And the thing is, it's out of tune. Like we're not in tune with each other. We didn't tune. His guitar's out of tune. It's not in tune with me. It sounds terrible. It's horrible. It's the worst.
Man.
And I'm looking and I like look up at the guy in the bed and he's just staring at us, breathing heavily. And I'm like, oh my God. And so then he's like, okay, let's, we finish. I'm like, he's like, you want to solo? I'm like, no, what are you doing? And so then he calls another song and we play it and we get like halfway through and then the guy in the bed kind of puts his hand up and like looks at his wife and she goes, so she's like, hey guys, I think that's enough. He's tired. And so we get cut off in the middle of this tune in the hospital room. And then he looks at us and he says, this may not mean much coming from a dying old man like me, but you guys sound pretty good. And pretty good, not good, but pretty good. And so that was it. And so we pack up our stuff, drive home in silence. Didn't say a word, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And I still, the gentleman sadly passed away a few days later, and I still asked for the $75 for the egg.
I mean, that's why you did it. You
agreed
to it. Yeah.
But just like I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this moment for the rest of my life. Just like it was so dark, and you're like, what am I doing? What's the path that I'm on? But then you still got to get paid. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's a story. If I've ever heard one, man, that's crazy.
Anyway, it was, and I think the thing was just the like totally not reading the room, just not reading the room at all, not playing like a nice sweet song, like a pretty ballad or something. It's just like working on the chops, like trying to like get, it was just so bad, man. It was so bad. That was definitely one of my worst experiences.
It's interesting for sure. It's like it's just so bleak sounding when you're like, and there's this 80 or something year old man and they had to wake him up. So right. You said that you played that festival in the UK and you did tour the UK. Was there like any really memorable experiences over there in like a specific country or anything like that?
Well, like I did So with Nick, we did a lot of cool, one of my, like pretty big stuff. So we did, I think was it Primavera in Porto? Like, I think it was Primavera, but it was like a massive festival, and the band that played before us at this festival, it was at the drive-in doing their reunion tour. So I got to watch that side stage, and it's just, I don't know how many, 10,000 people there.
Yeah.
And got to play after that, and just, it was just kind of this all inspiring, because it was like stadium style bleacher seating, so you're just kind of surrounded by people. And I just remember a moment where like everyone turned their lighters on in the middle of the performance, and it's just like, like goosebumps, kind of overwhelming,
Yeah.
unbelievable experience. We got to do, we did the day Trump got elected. I don't know where everyone stands on this politically here, but it was a very weird day, and we watched that election in London and did a gig at Brixton that day. I think Brixton Music Academy Music. And it was just a very weird, very dark day, but what was like an incredible show of just like kind of, like, this is crazy, but things are gonna go on. That was just a memorably weird day. And then
When you get in a moment like that and you're on stage, is there anything that you do that you can do to kind of snap yourself out of it? You know what I mean? Like if there's something bothering you that may have happened on the way there, or any like family issues, anything that may be going on or has happened.
Yeah.
What do you do on stage to kind of snap yourself out of it?
Well, I think because that's definitely happened to me. Excuse me, where you just, your brain wanders. I found that meditating, just like in general as a practice, has helped me in some of these moments, because when I started playing with Nick, I would get like pretty nervous before some of these gigs, because I just was like, okay, this is probably the most people I've ever played for. The first time I played for him, I met him the day before, like, so I like just learned the music. My friend Kirk Shanehair was playing in the band. He got me in. Basically, I was subbing for someone on a tour, and I met Nick the day before the tour started rehearsal, and I was just like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm. And so I got pretty nervous before that show, and it would happen sometimes on stage where you're in the moment, and I found that just, again, focusing in on the breath and just kind of like coming back to your breathing, and just be like, it's gonna, it's gonna be okay. It's like, and then start to notice the music again. I think a big thing, and the drummer in the band, Robbie Sinclair, we would talk about this kind of stuff, like spiritual stuff, and he has a line that he said to me, maybe one of the first times I ever met him, and it was a mentor of his, said this, like, if you're thinking about rushing or dragging, you're not listening. And that's something that I would think about a lot, like in those moments, is like, I'm going off, like maybe it's not, I'm thinking about rushing, but I'm thinking about, family or whatever, these other things. I'm not listening to Nick. I'm not listening to Robbie or Kirk or Grant. I'm off onto another thing. So it's like, all right, come back to, I don't know, the kick drum or the hi-hat, and like come back to locking into that, and like the music, and it could be overwhelming with a bigger crowd or the sound or whatever it is, that just like kind of come back to like the things you can control and the things you can hear, and just try and like relax a little bit, breathe, just focus on the breath. And I had a moment like that. We did a gig in France at Pitchfork Festival, and I made a mistake. I played a wrong note or something, and as a bass player, people only notice you when you make play a wrong note or a mistake. And I got really in my head. I was like, oh my God, I screwed up. Like, this is horribly embarrassing. And also, no one really cares. But yeah, but I just remember being on stage and like oh no, oh no. It was like the first song in the set too. So I was feeling like it's apart. And then just remember being in that moment and like starting to panic a little bit. And it was just like, hey, just breathe. Just relax. Like your shoulders are up here. Just let them down.
Mm-hmm.
Relax. It's fine. You're playing the bass guitar. No one's gonna get hurt. Like it's okay. You know what you're doing. You've done this, So I think that's the thing I usually tell myself. Just breathe. Don't start going down that rabbit hole of what's gone wrong, what's gonna happen after this. You just focus on the now.
That's great.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. What is your like first thing that pops in mind? What is the favorite show you've ever played?
Favorite show? Probably Red Rocks with Nick, with Chet Fager, with those guys in that band and that time. It's the only time I've ever been there. It's the only time I've ever played there, and there was this moment where, I mean, it's such a beautiful venue, and you're just like, looking up at the rocks and the canyon, and you're just like, the natural beauty is so overwhelming. And we had this, I didn't write any of this crap, but Nick has a song with Marcus Marr called Birthday Card. It was like one of my favorite songs to play live. And so we're playing it, and in the background, in the distance, there's a huge bolt of lightning. And it's like, oh, like that's not good. And like Nick turns around and like we kind of like locked eyes and we were like, oh, that's not good. And then there was one more. And so we're like, oh, they're gonna pull the plug on the show because it's about the lightning and stuff. So, we're getting into it and we're playing. It's like a 7-minute kind of like dancey tune. And unbeknownst to us, the production managers on the side of the stage, like arguing with the Red Rocks, they're like, we need to pull the show. There's lightning. And he's arguing with me. He's like, let him finish the song. If there's another bolt of lightning, we'll stop. But like, let him finish the song and da-da-da-da. And so they're like ready to go. And there was no more lightning. And there was this big buildup in the middle of the song, like with a huge drop that happens. And so there's this buildup. And right as the drop happens, it just starts pouring rain. And everybody in the crowd just goes crazy and just like starts dancing, like standing up and dancing in the rain. And just was this kind of like a weird magical moment.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, we're about to stop playing the set. And it went from that to just this like beautiful connection with the audience and the nature and the rain, and just like playing outside. And it's like one of those core memories for me of like being on the road. It was just like, it was a magical night. And, I felt really lucky to have gotten to experience something like that and get to play Red Rocks. Like, it's such an honor. And, it's just, I've done the full gamut of gigs from like, from hospital rooms to Red Rock. So like something like that was like really, really just like a special moment. And again, the guys in the band are like best friends. It was just like a really magical night.
Yeah, no, that sounds incredible. And like, honestly, you said the bass dropped in the rain, kind of gave me goosebumps a little bit. Just like,
oh yeah, good.
Trying to picture it like in that moment, it's just got to be like, oh, and just everyone had to be like, holy shit, that moment.
Yeah, it just felt, yeah, it's like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And it was magical, and everybody felt that. And just it was the best. It was such a cool
It's
experience.
like, did you see that video of Metallica playing, and the lead singer and guitarist is playing guitar, and he's ripping a solo or something, and in the background there's a screen where they have like fake lightning, and as he starts doing it, a lightning bolt strikes down behind him, and it's just like such a cool video. It's got to be like, it's got to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch this after we're done, but I think I have seen this.
Yeah.
Is this like more recently?
Yeah, this is like, I think this year this happened.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that,
Yeah.
but I watched. But yeah, like what the hell? You know,
Yeah.
like that's. I mean, as long as no one gets hurt.
And then the fact that it was at like Red Rocks, I've never played there, but when we did a full US, we went there because it's just open to the public during when there's no concerts.
There, right? Yeah.
And dude, it's I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
It was absolutely gorgeous. So
It's
I could
hard.
only imagine what it's like playing and like seeing it full of people and just that experience altogether,
Yeah, it would. I don't know if I'll ever be back there, but for it's something I've always wanted to do, and just to get to experience that and have it be that, it just was magic. It was a magical moment. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just got a few more here, and then we'll wrap it up. So I usually ask this early on. I kind of skipped over it, but writing this record, what were some of your major influences, and how did they influence your writing for this record?
So like musically or like songwriting wise, I think a lot about someone like Tom Petty, who, like most of these songs, I think the longest song on the record is Hondo Civic, which is 4 minutes, but everything else is like coming in like 3:15-ish. So a lot of the writing, I'm like, I just want to write super concise, like rock pop songs. Just like, I don't want anything to be weighted. I just wanted to be like, I kind of thought of it, the dream, the dark dream of this is like, I want this to be a record that somebody finds in the bargain bin 20 years from now. And they're like, damn, this is a really good record. I've never heard of this guy. Like they didn't do anything, but like every song on here is just like to the point and like great. And it just, it's like every song is concise and knows what it's trying to be. And so I the Tom Petty line, they'd say like, don't bore us, get to the chorus. I thought about that quite a bit. And then the person that I worked with on the record, Abe Seaforth, he's a great producer and mixing engineer. He's worked with Nation of Language and Gorilla Toss and worked at DFA for a long time, and he's a good friend. We like kind of co-produced this. I did a lot of it at home, and then I'd bring it to him, and we'd piece it together with the drums that Dave Burnett, the drummer, he would record at home and like send me those stems, and we'd kind of piecemeal it together. So it took a while to get it all done. But Abe and I would talk a lot about like what's the sound, and ELO would actually be referenced a lot.
Okay.
Kind of like slick 70s production, with the synths and just the precision of those records. They just sound super clean and like just that, they're gorgeous sounding records. So that was an influence as well, production wise, but trying to take that and kind of get it into like a more modern world was kind of the goal. So like, I thought a lot about Tom Petty, thought a lot about who else did I think about? Thin Lizzy, actually, with some of the songs, weirdly enough. And like, yeah, the influences be kind of all over the place. Pixies, that kind of stuff.
I gotta say, I definitely get there's two bands that I kind of get the vibe a little bit. One of them specifically vocally, I forget which song it is, but there's one song that kind of remind me of Bono a little bit from U2.
Oh,
someone
has said that to me before.
Yeah, it gives me that vibe, and I'm listening to it. I was like, it's just so good. It's
thanks, man.
really well done, and it's tastefully done. And then I think there's one or two songs that kind of give me a Beach Boys kind of vibe too, that kind of surf rocky vibe. Yeah. And
that surf rock is definitely in there. And like, I'm a big surfer. Surfing's like definitely my favorite thing to do outside of music. And a lot of these tunes, I would go do these like little like week-long retreats, I guess, down at the Jersey Shore, and I would just write music all day and go surf, and that's all I did. And so a lot of the songs I wrote doing this, and it would be this great thing of like I'd go surf and I would just like sit out in the water and get ideas. So, you know, this kind of goes back to your earlier, you know, idea of how you write, but like maybe get an idea in my head and then come home from surfing. And it's like, you know, I heard some interview with the Beatles talking about this, like, you know, you didn't have a recorder, so like it had to be memorable. So if by the time I got home from surfing, if I still had it in my head, there's something there maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And also a way to workshop lyrics, because you're just, you know, again, lyrics are hard for me. So you're sitting out there and you're like trying to rhyme stuff and get something going. And is this good? You know, that would be another way. So I would kind of like just go through that. And what I found was that I would get some, you know, so like half the songs were written down doing this little retreat. And what I found is that the like processor in my brain would start to get faster and faster for writing and coming up with ideas. And as that was happening, my ability to interact with other human beings started to fall apart, dissipate.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I was like, oh, this is like what happens to like artists who are just doing art all the time, and they're getting so sucked up in their world, and then you're like, you don't even know how to order a sandwich. I would start to see that happening to me as well. But so anyway, we were talking about it a little more tangent, but Surf Rock, Beach Boys, like These Days, which has like this, that's the second tune on the record, has like a lot of harmonies, like big harmonies to it, and definitely was, you know, a lot of experimentation with harmony, singing and writing these harmonies, and like trying to figure that stuff out, because that doesn't come naturally to make harmony singing, you know, and I would love it too. So I'm like trying to always work on that and write harmonies and like figure out how they fit and all that kind of stuff. And because I love it, I love Beach Boys, Beatles, you know, like I've come very late to singing in my life, and I love it. Singing harmony with someone, it's like I get to do with Emily, my girlfriend, and like it's the best. It's the best. So that was definitely big, like trying to get a lot of harmony writing. And then like Honda Civic and those choruses, like Emily added all these layers of harmonies to give it this, again, like very 70s pop kind of sheen to it, which like really made the whole thing pop, I think.
Absolutely. Harmonies, in my opinion, harmonies can make or break a record too. It can make or break a song. When we would write and record, as the drummer, I also would do harmonies live.
Cool.
And on the recordings, I have a very high voice, which doesn't make sense because I'm a big, you know, burly man, but it makes no sense.
That is the trick of life. The harmony singing drummer who's singing like tenor, like falsetto, like I don't know how many. It's like a thing. It's like it's a real world thing. That's awesome. I'm glad you're the harmony singing drummer.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I love doing it. It's one of my. It made me feel like, you know, not to get sidetracked, but like when I would drum and play a show, like it almost makes you feel like you have more purpose when you're doing that along with it, because you really are, as long as you're nailing it, you really are adding so much to the songs. Because like I said, that being able to pull that off live or even just on a recording, like that could be what draws the people in to that specific song or moment.
Yeah. And I think it's also a thing that no matter the level of musicianship of a listener, when there's harmony, everybody's like, oh,
yeah,
you know,
it's the one thing everyone understands.
Everyone gets it, like, oh wow, you know. So I think you're 100% correct. Like it just like it elevates. People always love when they hear a good harmony. That's sick. That's sick that you're the one out in that sauce.
Yeah. I didn't start doing it until this band, and it was one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, Tim, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is a lot of fun. I'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great. Yeah, now if you have anything to promote, like a new record, new songs, now would be the time.
Okay, so so the full Casual Mail LP that John has heard is coming out October 4th. It'll be available on all the streaming shits. I'm gonna put a final single out on the 25th of September. That'll be Help Me, which is on the record. And we're doing a big release show here in Brooklyn at Union Pool on the 9th. So I don't know if you've ever played Union Pool with your band back in the day. It's like my favorite venue to play in New York.
Mm-hmm.
It's Taco Truck, El Diablo Tacos, little shout out there. And it's just it's like the perfect venue because there's a great venue, there's an outdoor space, there's food, it's a great bar. It's been around for a long time. Sounds great, looks great. So I usually play there when I'm doing a full band show. So we'll be doing a October 9th show, and the record's on the 4th. Help Me on the 25th. And those are the big things. I'm going to be doing some smaller solo shows like I was talking about the Boombox around Brooklyn and Manhattan. I'll be doing a few of those. But, we're on Casual Mail. At Casual Mail is like the social media handles, and any support is much needed and appreciated. But that's what I got coming up, and I'm looking forward to finally putting the record out.
Any hopes of touring, getting out there after the record?
Yeah, I would like to. I'm talking to some folks about maybe doing a little West Coast run. And maybe some stuff in Europe in 2025. Probably just solo stuff. Can't quite get the full band out yet, but I'm trying to do maybe some November shows in the West Coast, and nothing's finalized yet, and then some Europe stuff in 2025, but nothing solidified except for the October 9th show at the moment.
Awesome. All right, Tim, I thank you again. This was great. Love the stories. Can't wait to have you back on in the future. Everybody, thank you for sticking around, watching the episode. Be sure to give the record a listen when it drops, October 4th, like he said. Give the singles a listen. Currently, Half Cut and Hondo Civic are out. Go ahead and give the music video a watch as well. Tell a friend. Do whatever you can to help support him. The record's great. You're going to love it. Trust me. He did a phenomenal job on it. We'll see you next time.
Bye, bitch.